Hey, this is Matt Daniels again, and I am here today with a multi part series on our 40 days of gratitude practice, learning skills about gratitude. And what I want to talk about today is the topic of what's God got to do with it? So, 40 Days of Gratitude comes out of a uniquely Judeo Christian worldview, which presupposes a few facts that other people might not suppose. First of all, it presupposes the existence of a personal, loving God. Who is not just way out there off in the distance, but who is up close and personal and loves every single person that God has made on the face of the entire planet. Another thing it assumes is that God is always speaking. It is in God's nature to speak. In fact, the whole word that describes God is that word, the Word. In the beginning was the Word. And so, in the Christian worldview in particular, it looks at Jesus as a word or God's message that came forth. One of the names for Jesus is Emmanuel. Emmanuel literally meant God with us. So we've got an assumption one, that there is a God, that God is personal, that God is love, and that God is always speaking. So if God is all those things, it would make sense that God would be speaking when we are experiencing everything, especially appreciation. One of the ways that we find to really make a close connection with God is actually through the gateway of appreciation. A lot of Psalms and other scriptures in the Old Testament will say things like, I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. There's some, in fact, who would say that thanksgiving and appreciation, gratitude, is actually like a passcode into the presence of God. What neuroscience will tell us is that we've got circuits in our brain called relational circuits that when those relational circuits are activated, and it just so happens that gratitude and appreciation activate them, that when those circuits are activated, that is the time that we can really make a good connection with the other who is outside us. Now, in most cases, we want to make a good connection with another human being. Those relational circuits, if we're going to experience an open flow of heart communication with another human being, our relational circuits have got to be on. Appreciation turns them on. We believe also that appreciation turns on our relational circuits in such a way that we can perceive the presence and the voice of God clearer than at other times. Now, some people are not super down with the whole let's connect with the maker of the universe. It feels like a seance to them. It feels goofy. It feels weird. It's either outside of their belief system or it's outside of their experience or how do I know the difference between the voice of God or something funny that I ate or something that I smoked or don't weird people hear the voice of God? So there's a number of reasons that some people say, you know what, this is not for me. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's okay. If it is for you, or if you're willing to practice or play or do an experiment and just be open to what you might experience, then there's a few things that are good to take into account. First, as I mentioned before, is that the part of our brain that makes a good contingent communication with another human being is the part that's mostly tied to this experience of appreciation. A lot of people, myself included, found that it was only after about 6 months to 9 months of pretty regular, consistent appreciation practice did I even have a sense that God really is there and really does want to have communication with me. So, one of the things that could keep a person from experiencing God is that their capacity for experiencing appreciation is so incredibly low. So, that's one thing to take into account. Another thing to take into account is we're not talking about writing new books of the Bible. We're not talking about receiving great prophecies, although it could happen, right? That are going to change the fate of the universe, or all the things that people tend to fear. What if God tells me to go to Africa, or what if God tells me to leave my spouse, or what if God, and people invent a whole bunch of scenarios that they generally never would even experience, as ways to almost little barriers that can sometimes even be related to a little bit of fear, that make us think, hey, this is a new practice and I don't know if I want to do it. What we encourage people to do is adopt an attitude of doing an experiment, adopt an attitude of play. And so, even when you're having a time where you're opening your heart to the fact that maybe the loving God of the universe, who says he speaks to us, actually wants to speak to us, that we say, adopt an attitude of, let's see.